The sun hung low over the Arizona territory, spilling molten gold across the desert and turning the dust of Red Hollow into a glowing haze. Wagon wheels creaked lazily down Main Street, boots thudded against wooden boardwalks, and somewhere inside the saloon a piano clanged out a half-drunk melody. It looked like an ordinary evening on the frontier, but Clara Whitmore could feel eyes on her. Again. She stepped out of her father's general store carrying a wooden crate of canned peaches, flour sacks, and lamp oil. The crate was heavier than it looked, and she bent carefully, lowering it beside a stack of barrels near the hitching post. Silence fell. Not the normal quiet of a town at dusk, but a held breath. Clara straightened slowly, brushing loose strands of chestnut hair from her face. She didn't have to look across the street to know who it was. Jake Callahan leaned against the saloon railing, boots crossed at the ankle, hat tipped low. He pretended to inspect the horizon like it held the secrets of the universe. Too late. She marched into the street, skirts swaying, boots kicking up small clouds of dust. "Cowboy," she called sharply. Several men on the porch stiffened. Jake glanced at her lazily. "Evenin', Miss Whitmore. Every time I bend down, I catch you staring." A bottle slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the boards. Jake pushed off the railing slowly, removing his hat with exaggerated politeness. Storm gray eyes met hers without apology. "Ma'am," he drawled, "I was admiring the craftsmanship of that crate." "The crate?" she repeated, incredulous. "Fine wood. Sturdy build." Her cheeks flushed, but not from embarrassment, from fury. "Don't you dare deny it." A corner of his mouth lifted. "I ain't denying anything." The wind stirred between them, carrying the scent of leather and desert sage. Clara hated how calm he looked. Hated how his gaze didn't flinch now that she'd called him out. "You think this town's your entertainment?" she pressed. "No, ma'am," he said softly. "Just passing the time." Before she could fire back, a distant gunshot cracked through the air. Every head turned toward the ridge beyond town. Jake's playful expression vanished in an instant. His body shifted, not relaxed cowboy anymore, but something sharper. Dangerous. Sheriff Tom galloped in moments later, face grim beneath his hat. "Black Ridge gang's been spotted east of town." The easy laughter drained from Red Hollow. Clara looked back at Jake. He wasn't smiling now. He was already reaching for his rifle. Red Hollow did not sleep that night. Word of the Black Ridge gang spread faster than wildfire in dry grass. Lanterns flickered in every window, casting nervous shadows across the wooden storefronts. Men who hadn't touched their rifles in years suddenly cleaned and loaded them with shaking hands. Horses were moved behind buildings. Mothers gathered children indoors. The desert wind carried a tension that tasted like iron. Inside the general store, Clara Whitmore stacked ammunition boxes beside sacks of grain while her father argued in hushed tones with Sheriff Tom. She tried to focus on counting supplies, but her thoughts kept drifting to the ridge line, and to Jake Callahan. The bell above the door jingled softly. She didn't turn around. "We're closed." "It's me." His voice was lower than usual. No teasing edge. No lazy charm. She faced him then. Jake stood just inside the doorway, hat shadowing his eyes, rifle slung across his back. He looked different in the lamplight, harder somehow, like a man carved from stone instead of dust and swagger. "My father's not selling ammunition after dark," she said coolly. "I'm not here for bullets." He paused. "Your father's sending you to your aunt's ranch. You leave in an hour." Her jaw tightened. "I'm not running." "You're not staying either." The firmness in his voice sparked her temper. "You don't get to decide that." He stepped closer, lowering his tone so only she could hear. "The Black Ridge gang doesn't just rob stores and ride off laughing." Something in the way he said it made her chest tighten. "You've seen what they do." "I have." The silence stretched heavy between them. Outside, boots stomped, hammers pounded boards over windows. 3 years ago, Jake continued quietly, they rode through a town called Mesa Creek. My brother thought he could talk sense into them. His jaw flexed. He was wrong. Clara's anger softened, replaced by something else. Understanding. And now, she asked gently. Now I don't let them take anything else. A shout erupted outside. Riders had appeared at the edge of town, dark shapes against the dying sun. Jake adjusted his rifle strap and moved toward the door. Jake, she called before she could stop herself. He paused but didn't turn fully. If you survive this, she said, voice steadier than she felt, you're still not denying it. For the briefest moment, the corner of his mouth lifted. Then the cowboy stepped out into the dust, and toward the coming war, gunfire ripped through Red Hollow like a summer storm splitting the sky. The first volley shattered saloon windows and sent splinters flying into the street. Horses screamed, men shouted, and smoke rolled thick through the lantern light. The Black Ridge gang rode hard and fast, expecting panic. They didn't expect Jake Callahan. He moved from cover to cover with steady precision, rifle braced against his shoulder, expression carved from cold focus. Each shot he fired was deliberate. No wasted bullets. No wild anger. Just control. The playful cowboy who leaned against railings and tipped his hat was gone. In his place stood a man who had waited 3 years for this moment. Clara watched from behind the general store window, hands gripping the sill so tightly her knuckles burned white. Every crack of gunfire made her flinch. She told herself to stay inside. To stay safe. Then she saw one of the outlaws break away from the main street, circling toward the alley behind the store. Her breath caught. If he reached the back entrance, he'd be inside before anyone noticed. Without thinking, Clara rushed behind the counter and grabbed her father's shotgun. It felt heavier than she expected, solid and unforgiving in her hands. She stepped outside into the alley, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the chaos in the street. The outlaw spotted her instantly. Well now, he sneered, raising his pistol. What do we have here? The shot rang out, but not from her gun. Jake slammed into the outlaw from the side, tackling him into the dirt. The pistol skidded across the ground. They rolled hard, fists flying, boots kicking up dust. The outlaw drew a knife, slashing wildly. Jake caught his wrist, driving it into the ground with brutal force until the blade dropped. The fight ended as quickly as it began. Jake rose slowly, chest heaving, blood streaking his knuckles. The outlaw lay unconscious in the dirt. Clara stood frozen, shotgun trembling in her grip. Jake turned toward her, eyes flashing. You shouldn't be out here. You weren't fast enough, she shot back, though her voice shook. For a heartbeat they stared at each other, fear, anger, relief colliding in the space between them. By dawn, the remaining outlaws had fled or been captured. Smoke drifted lazily through the quieting town. Jake washed blood from his hands at the trough, shoulders heavy but standing tall. Clara approached him slowly. You could have been killed, she said. He glanced at her, gray eyes softer now. So could you. And neither of them looked away. A week after the gunfight, Red Hollow felt almost peaceful again. Broken windows had been replaced, scorch marks scrubbed from wooden walls, and the piano inside the saloon played lively tunes as if nothing had happened. But something had changed beneath the surface. The town no longer looked at Jake Callahan as the drifting cowboy who leaned and watched. They looked at him like a man who had stood between them and ruin. Sheriff Tom had offered him a deputy badge that morning. Clara had heard about it before she found him. He stood at the edge of town near the weathered fence line, saddling his horse beneath a pale sunrise. The desert stretched endless beyond him, open and tempting. A man like Jake belonged to horizons, not porches. You're leaving, she said quietly. He didn't turn right away. Town's safe now. That's not what I asked. He tightened the saddle strap, checking it twice before finally facing her. There was no teasing grin this time. No lazy confidence. Just conflict. The badge, she pressed. I turned it down. Her brows lifted slightly. Why? Because staying means roots. His voice was steady, but she heard the strain underneath. And roots mean something to lose. She stepped closer, boots brushing dust against his. You already had something to lose the night you tackled that outlaw in the alley. His jaw shifted. I don't need steady, she continued softly. I need honest. The wind tugged at her hair as silence stretched between them. He removed his hat slowly, holding it in his hands like it carried more weight than leather should. You want honesty? He said at last. Every time you bend down, I look. Not because I'm mocking you. Not because I think you don't notice. His eyes met hers fully now. I look because you're alive in a way most people aren't. Fierce. Unafraid to challenge me. I've spent years chasing revenge, staring at ghosts. Then you start yelling at me in the middle of the street. A faint smile touched his lips. And suddenly I'm looking at something worth staying for. Her breath softened. And why would you need to memorize me, she whispered. In case I lost the nerve to choose you. She took the hat from his hands and placed it back on his head firmly. Then don't lose it. He glanced once at the open desert. Then he chose not to ride into it. And this time, he didn't deny a thing.